And I beheld heaven open, and behold the white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. We are at
So you better lace your straps up.
and spiritual.
We're at war. So you better lace your straps up.
Man, the hell up this world.
This is war.
We are at war.
So you better lace your straps up.
And spiritual.
We're at war. So you better lace your straps
Man, the hell
up.
up this world. Big tanks, warships, and planted hands with small chips. North Korea, Russian spies, war is at our doorstep. History doesn't lie, they beat the slaves with horse whips. So I think it's only right we pay them back with sword tips. End of time, spoken of, it's gonna get a little warm. Daniel 7 started 8, judgment of the little horn that beat us down, held us back, called us by obscenities. Prepare us a table in the presence of our enemies and pay them back. Worse than that, they argue that the earth is flat. Our babies dying, mothers crying, cities full of murdered blacks. Hispanics too, they hate you too. Edomites are not your friend. Harmless smile behind the scenes. They tracking you through iPhone 10 technologies, through policy. We served them since the colonies. This ain't our rest, my mind is right. This place is hell, I'm not at ease. I swore an oath with every breath. I promise to defend the law. Sword is sharpened, armored up. I'm calling for the men of
This
war.
is war.
We are at Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, everybody. Ashar Shabbat. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. Everyone is doing well. Welcome to another edition of the Lions of Israel Sabbath service. All right. We're going to get started momentarily. You guys know we just have to run everything down. First of all, I want to give all praise, all honor, all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh. And I do that, of course, in the name of his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. I want to appreciate all the brothers and sisters that, faithfully come every week to listen to the classes, all the messages that I get from brothers and sisters about how the classes have been helping you, brothers and sisters, in your understanding and going further. So I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High for that. I want to shout out everybody that's watching on Maccabees TV. I've been being pressed by those closest to me to continue to do the Sabbath classes on Maccabees TV, as well as our personal Lines of Israel class page as well, for the foreseeable future, just to make sure that the maximum amount of people are able to see the video, especially since YouTube is suppressing a lot of Israelite content in the algorithm. So I've been encouraged by brothers and sisters to continue on both channels. So I'm going to go ahead and take that advice. So shout out to everybody that's watching on Maccabees TV. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys share the video. Okay. As well as everybody that's watching on the Lines of Israel class page as well on YouTube. A major shout out to you brothers and sisters as well. Okay. Also, I want to give a strong shout out to Messiah TV, for allowing us to broadcast on his platform. Messiah has been very generous, allowing us to broadcast on his platform, which actually goes into people's homes. So people are actually home flipping through the channels, probably looking to go watch ESPN or college football or whatever like that. And as they're flipping through the channels, they run across Israelite content on Roku or Apple TV or whatever they're using, the Fire Stick, whatever they're using, they come across Israelite content. So we're very grateful to Brother Messiah for allowing us to use his platform to broadcast directly into people's homes. And of course, last but not least, shout out to everybody that's listening on Clubhouse. All right. Now, you guys on Clubhouse, you guys already know how this thing works, right? The way this thing works is that people go into the matrix for whatever reason. Everybody knows that Clubhouse is janky a little bit sometimes. That's why I'll always provide brothers and sisters with the link to the YouTube video at the top of the screen. If you guys want to follow along in the PowerPoint that I'm going to do, you guys can click the link at the top so you can visually see what it is I'm talking about, right? Or if there's any problem with the audio, you guys can visually see what I'm talking about, okay? Messiah, I moderated you for the time being, so just do me a favor. If any of the teachers that are in the audience, the usual teachers, want to come to the stage, they can feel free to come to the stage. All right. I'm just asking everybody to stay on mute. I'm trying to get through everything that I need to get through between now and 12 o'clock so I can pass it over to the God First Game, Brother Corey and Brother Mal, so they can do their class at 12 o'clock. So I have a lot of things I want to get through, short amount of time. And so let's begin, of course, with doing a couple of the prayers really quickly. Let me just play these two videos with the prayers, and then we're going to get right into today's lesson. So hold on a second, you guys, all right?
Abanawa, Shabashamayim, Kwadash, Haya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakotka, Taba'a, Ratazaka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Kowa, Haya, Bashamayim, Lathanawa, Lacham, Kal, Yawam, Wasalachnawa, Chaubwathnawa, Kasalachnawa, Chaubwathinawa, Wala'a, Tabia Anawa, Manasaya 1, Abal, Hawashai Nawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wa'ala, Wa'athapa Arath, La'ai Walamyam, Aman.
All praises to the Most High. That's the Lord's Prayer, Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. Okay, now let's go and do Numbers chapter 6, and we're going to get started. Let's go.
Ya Baraka, Ya Baraka, Yahweh, Yahweh, Waya Shamaka, Waya Shamaka, Yahweh, Yahweh, Ya Yahweh, Panyawa Al Yak, Panyawa Al Yak, Waya Khanka, Waya Khanka, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yasha Yahweh, Yasha Yahweh, Panyawa Al Yak, Panyawa Al Yak, Wayasham, Wayasham, Laka Shalom, Laka Shalom, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Yahweh Shah, Barak Rapah, Barak Rapah, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Yahweh Shah, Barak Rapah, Barak Rapah, Yasha Allah, Yasha Allah.
Again, we give all praise, all honor, all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, for allowing us to see another Sabbath day. All praise to the Most High for that. So without further ado, brothers and sisters, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with today's lesson. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to share the entire screen. That process usually seems to work the best out of all the processes that I utilize. Okay, I'm going to go right into it. So if I'm having any audio issues, Lions of Israel Camp, I'm going to be all over the place. I'm going to be here and there. If there are any audio issues at any time, you brothers and sisters, of course, just text my phone directly and let me know as soon as you guys see or hear some type of audio issue. There always seems to be an audio issue on the Sabbath when I do my classes. When I do the academy, there's no audio issues. So I don't know why that is. But, you know, we're going to truck on through. We're going to continue. We're going to endure. We're not going to allow those things to deter us. All right. Once again, for you brothers and sisters on Clubhouse, you guys should all know by now that my lessons are all PowerPoints. From the most basic lessons to the more advanced lessons, everything I do is usually a PowerPoint lesson because the visual learning has helped a lot of people. That's the feedback that I've been getting for the last 2.5 years since I've been doing PowerPoint lessons exclusively. So even though we're going over basic scriptures, right, it's still in the form of a PowerPoint lesson, right? So I had to dig into the archives. Well, let me give you guys. So what I was saying to the people on Clubhouse, if you guys want to follow along on the PowerPoint, the link is at the top of the room. You guys can come over and watch the PowerPoint live on YouTube. Okay, bear with me 2 seconds, real quick. So I always like to talk about what inspires these lessons. Like, where do I get my lessons from? Because I get asked that a lot. Like, how am I inspired to do lessons every week, right? Well, I'm inspired to do lessons every week basically, I'll tell you what, over the last year, let's just use that for an example, Clubhouse has inspired me to do a lot of lessons because Clubhouse is fertile ground for anybody. Anybody can create an account. Anybody can open their mic and come up on stage and spout all types of nonsense. Anybody could do that. And so every week, a lot of times I'm in these rooms, a lot of times, and you guys will see me on stage, but I'm on mute. I'm not saying anything. I'm just listening. And when these doctrines come out, a lot of times I say to myself, okay, you know what? This would be a good time to go and review that particular scripture to make sure that understanding is understood, that brothers and sisters are in line and have the proper understanding of how to break these scriptures down, right? This is a PowerPoint that I did, I want to say about 2 years ago, because you had some brothers in Israel that were a part of the Israelite movement, right? Who did not study. They don't study, right? And a wave of doctrine, a wind of doctrine came into Israel about God's laws being done away with. And it swept out of Israel a good amount of reprobate brothers and sisters because they don't study. And so I was on Clubhouse this week, and that reprobate doctrine came to the stage, right? And I said to myself, okay, you know what? At that time, we were talking about something else. So somebody went into these particular scriptures, and we didn't answer the question. Not because we can't answer the question, but because we were talking about something else, we kind of let that slide. I can't let that slide. I can't let that slide. I got to make sure that everybody understands exactly what these particular scriptures that was brought out is actually talking about. So this PowerPoint that I have on the screen right here is a PowerPoint I put together a few years ago when that wave of Israelites slid out of Israel and went into Christianity and became reprobates, right? And every now and then I got to pull this PowerPoint out, dust it off, and go over the same scriptures again because the same doctrine remains with Christians and Christian-minded Israelites, right? So you guys can see the name of the PowerPoint is called The Laws Are Done Away With Starter Pack, right? You guys see the memes they have online of the starter pack, right? So I created something called The Laws Are Done Away With Starter Pack, right? You have a New Testament only Bible because they don't give a damn what the law and the prophets say. And the white men even came up with a Bible that only has the Psalms, the Proverbs, and the New Testament, which is wicked as hell, right? Got white Jesus, right? Of course, the Apostle Paul supersedes the prophets, the law, and even Christ, right? Paul, right? And of course, the last thing in the starter pack, you got your degree from seminary school. That's your law is done away with starter pack. And it'd be a starter pack. Talk about a precept package. They try to make jokes about Israelites. So you guys got a precept package. Nobody has a precept package better than the Christians. You guys go to the same scriptures all the time to teach the same reprobate doctrines that we have to rebuke. So let's get right into it. All right. This is a part of the Christian reprobate precept package. This is the book of Colossians chapter 2, verses 13 through 17. I'm not going through all these verses right now because it would take me about 3 hours just to break these 6 verses down. It would take me about 3 hours to go through all of this stuff. So I'm not. I'm going to focus specifically on the verses that came to the stage this week that we didn't answer. I want to make sure it get answered now. But I'm going to read all these verses, but I'm going to focus specifically on verses 16 and 17. Because every time I turn around, you have a Christian or a Christian-minded Israelite that will come to the stage, right? They say they believe Christ in the words of Christ, Yahweh Shai. They will ask them, do you keep the law? They'll say, yes, we keep the law, we keep the commandments. So whatever is the nearest holy day that just passes by, we'll ask them, hey, did you keep that? Hey, did you keep Day of Atonement? Hey, did you keep Feast of Tabernacles? Did you go camping for Feast of Tabernacles? Hey, are you going to keep Feast of Dedication? And every time that we ask them specific questions about specific laws that were commanded for us to keep, they always say, you don't have to keep those anymore. So then we'll ask them, okay, what scripture in the Bible says you don't have to keep the holy days anymore? And they come here. And some of you Israelites are weak in the faith. You're weak in the faith. You don't study either. You're on the fence too. And you don't say anything, which is my biggest problem with a lot of Israelites. You're weak in the faith and you don't say anything. You like all them videos online when people are at camp and there's reprobates and there's scoffers arguing with the teachers. All that stuff is exciting, right? But you don't build yourself up in the areas where you're weak, in the areas where you have that seed of doubt that's lingering. And how I know is because I repeatedly see year in and year out, people fall out the truth behind these scriptures. Because you were so busy watching those videos over there with all the excitement, you didn't show yourself up where you were weak. So it's my job as a teacher to make sure just because you ain't saying nothing doesn't mean I ain't going to say nothing. I'm going to go over the scripture anyway. So somebody brought this scripture to the stage on Clubhouse this week to say the laws are done away with. Because here is a Christian that says, I keep the laws, I keep the commandments like Christ told me to do. Then we got specific and asked about holy days. He said, no, Christ said you don't have to keep the holy days. This scripture is not teaching you don't have to keep the holy days. I'm going to show you that. It's not teaching that. Let's go. Colossians chapter 2, we're going to start from verse 13. We're going to read down to 17. But our primary laser focus is going to be on verses 16 and 17. Let's go. It says, and you, being dead in your sins, and the uncircumcision of your flesh, hath he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. Who is this? This is Yahushua. Yahushua is able to forgive us all trespasses. That is extremely important verbiage. Christ is able to forgive us from all trespasses. Was Moses able to forgive us from all trespasses when he mediated the first covenant? No. If you were an idolater, according to Deuteronomy chapter 13, you were put to death. If you were a homosexual, Leviticus 20 and 13, you were put to death. If you were a witch, you were put to death. And the list goes on and on and on and on. Moses could not forgive you for all trespasses. For some trespasses, there was remedy in the law for those trespasses where you can do certain things and you can be pardoned for some things. But the Bible says Christ was able to forgive us from all trespasses. Why is this important? Because these Israelites that Paul is writing to that are in the diaspora, the majority of these Israelites in Colossae, Corinth, Ephesus, so forth and so on, a lot of these Israelites were idolaters, which is by Moses' law worthy of death. A lot of them were idolaters before they heard the gospel. That's a fact. When you read 1 Corinthians 6 and 9, Paul speaks about the unrighteous not inheriting the kingdom of heaven. He says fornicators, right? Abusing themselves with mankind, idolaters. He said they shall not inherit the kingdom of heaven. And he goes on to say, and such were some of you. So before they heard the gospel, the people in Corinth, they were idolaters, they were adulterers, they were murderers, they were all those things. And before Christ had come, those things were unforgivable. You're supposed to be punished for those things. And Moses had no remedy in the law to pardon you from those things. But Christ is able to forgive us from what? All trespasses. That's the difference between the covenant that Yahushua Christ mediated and the covenant that Moses mediated. That's what this is saying. Colossians 2 verse 13 again. And you being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh, which is the token of the covenant that the Most High made between Israel and him, hath he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. How was Christ able to forgive us from all trespasses? Verse 14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us. It doesn't say Christ blotted out the handwriting of the ordinances, which is the stupid things that Christians say. It says Christ blotted out the handwriting of the ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us. What is that talking about? The judgments that were in the law. For the things that we did that were not able to be pardoned under that first covenant that Moses got. But Christ was able to forgive us from all trespasses by blotting out the handwriting of ordinances or those judgments that was against us and took it out the way, nailing it to his cross, meaning Christ offered himself. And by offering himself, he gave a greater sacrifice than what Moses was able to give. Why? Because Christ's sacrifice covers us from all things, all trespasses, even idolatry, even adultery, even witchcraft, or whatever sin that we might have been in before we came into the truth, right? Christ is able to cover that by his sacrifice. That's what that's saying. You got Christians that teach us that that's saying the law is done away with. Christ nailed the law to the cross. That's not what that says. That doesn't say Christ nailed the law to the cross. It said Christ nailed the ordinances that was against us to the cross. That's the judgments. Hope everybody understands. This stuff is not hard. It simply takes reading comprehension. Do you know that people fell out the truth behind the scripture, which is crazy to me? It's crazy. Niggas be seeing words that's not here. Verse 15. And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Verse 16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of a holy day, or the new moon, or the Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is Christ. That's a lot of words. Let's read that again. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or the Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. That's a lot going on in those two verses. And that's what we're going to focus on today, because that's what was brought to the stage this week on Clubhouse. First, are you confused now? This is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. It says, for God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints. Let me tell you something. Christ said, think not that I'm come to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill. He goes on to say, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law. If Paul was to come behind him teaching that Christ abolished holy days, that would make what Christ said in Matthew chapter 5 a lie. That would make it a lie. That is confusion. So that cannot be the understanding of Colossians 2:16. If the understanding according to Christians is that this is saying that you could eat whatever you want, because that's what they say. Verse 16 means you could eat whatever you want, right? And you don't have to keep holy days no more because Christ came and died. You don't have to do that. If that's the understanding of this verse, that would contradict what Christ said out of his own mouth. And also what Paul said to other churches, like the church at Rome, in Romans chapter 3 and other places in the Bible. It would even contradict his own epistles. It doesn't make sense. So that cannot be the understanding of what's going on in Colossians chapter 2, verse 16. I want that to be understood, right? Now, let's look particularly again at Colossians 2:16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or the new moon or of the Sabbath, right? Let's first of all hear what White Cemetery, aka Seminary School, teaches concerning Colossians chapter 2, verse 16. Let's hear their understanding, which these pork chop eating pastors regurgitate, because that's who they go to get their cemetery degrees any damn way. They go to the damn white man. Listen to what the white man says about this verse. And this is where niggas get it from. Listen.
Practical implication. Let no man therefore what? Judge you. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or respect of holy days or of new moons or of Sabbath days. Now, why would it be the case that we should not let any man judge us with respect to those things? With respect to meat and drink, with respect to holy days, with respect to new moons or Sabbath days? Why, in the context, should we not let any man judge us with respect to those things? The answer is in verse 14. Look at verse 14. Blotting out what? The handwriting of ordinances that was against us. So the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, and I'm going to show you this very clearly as we go through things this morning. Did it include meat and drink? Did it include holy days? Did it include new moons and Sabbath days? Did it include all of those things, right? 2 verses before, he says, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way.
Wait a minute. So according to what he's saying, the holy days were contrary to us. Passover was contrary to us. I thought Passover was a celebration of the Most High delivering the children of Israel. How in the blue blazes is that contrary to us? How is the Feast of First Fruits, which the Most High gave us, contrary to us? Explain. That doesn't make any sense. How is the Feast of Dedication, where the Most High allowed the Maccabees to capture back our temple and rededicate it? How is that contrary to us? Do you see how Christianity doesn't make no sense? It doesn't make no sense. These holy days always signify the Most High showing favor and mercy to Israel. How in the hell is that contrary to us? That's how you know this would be BS exegesis from white Christians that black people listen to and come and regurgitate to try to fight against us. Crazy.
Nailing it where? To the cross. So I'll say it again. Did Jesus pay off the righteous requirements of the law? Did he fulfill all the law required so that he could be our Savior, our Redeemer, our Justifier? So now verse 16, let no man therefore judge you. So why should we not let any man judge us with respect to the things mentioned here in verse 16? The reason we should not is because if you've been paying attention, he's already said 2 verses earlier that stuff is blotted out, taken out of the way, and it no longer has any force upon us as believers. So therefore, don't let any man judge you with respect to the thing.
So the Most High delivering the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, the Most High sent his son Christ to die on the cross to blot that memory out. Let that sink in. Does that make any sense to y'all? It makes no sense to me. Because that's not what it's talking about. That's not what it's talking about. As I mentioned to you before, Christ blotted out the unforgivable, unpardonable sins that under the first covenant there were no sacrifices for. If you did them, you had to die. And these people that were in these diaspora areas where Israel was, Ephesus, Philippi, Colossae, Corinth, etc., these people were in the midst of the very sins that were unforgivable. But yet the gospel was being preached to them. Why? Because Christ had come and died and blotted out those sins even for them. That's what's going on in Colossians chapter 2. Now let's move on to the next slide.
Practical.
Okay. I'm going to skip this for now. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece by piece. Matter of fact, let's do this slide right here real quick. Let's come back to it. Let's do it. I'm not going to skip anything. What is a meat offering? What is a meat offering? We're going to find out what a meat offering is right now. Let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 2. And all we're going to do is we're going to read verse number 1. That's all we need. Leviticus chapter 2. We're going to read verse 1. This is what it says. It says, and when any will offer a meat offering unto the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil upon it and put frankincense thereon. So a meat offering is flour, oil, and frankincense. That's a meat offering. Hopefully everybody understands. Flour, oil, and frankincense. Let's go to the next slide. Now, let's look at Leviticus chapter 23, verse 37. Why is Leviticus 23:37 important? Because Leviticus 23 is a list of all of our set apart days. It's a list of all of our set apart days, right? Let's read what it says. It says, these are, and verse 37 is a summation of everything that took place before. Verse 37 is a summation of everything that took place before in Leviticus 23, from verses 1 to verse 36. Verse 37 is now going to summarize what took place in the first 36 verses. Let's read it. It says, these are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Now, if you're looking at the PowerPoint and you look back at Colossians 2:16, it speaks about respect of an holy day. Respect of an holy day. Y'all see that? Leviticus 23, verse 37. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and drink offerings, everything upon its day. So when you go from verses 1 to verse 36 in Leviticus chapter 23, there is a list of all of our set apart days. On each of our set apart days, there are specific burnt offerings that have to be offered. What are those? Sacrifices. There are meat offerings that have to be offered. What are those? Sacrifices, right? A sacrifice, which is usually a sin offering, And there are drink offerings that have to be offered to the Most High every single holy day. So the meat and the drink on the holy days in Colossians 2:16 is talking about the meat offerings and the drink offerings that had to be offered on these holy days. Does everybody see that? Does everybody see that? Why is Paul teaching this? You have to put yourself back in this time period. Christ had come and died, right? When you read Luke chapter 21, Christ prophesied that the Romans were going to come in and they were going to trod down Jerusalem because the Most High was going to take vengeance on the nation of Israel. Now we know in retrospect, looking back at history, this happened in 70 AD. The Romans came in, they destroyed the temple. Now you have no more priesthood. You have no temple and you have no priesthood to make these sacrifices for you anymore. Does everybody see that? So how is reconciliation now made if there's no temple and there's no priesthood? Christ covered this stuff. Yahweh Shai covered this stuff through his sacrifices. Does everybody understand that? Hopefully everybody understands that, right? Let's move on to the next one. When you go to the book of Numbers chapter 29, verses 36 through 40, let's read it. It says, "But ye shall offer a burnt offering, a sacrifice made by fire, of a sweet savor unto the Lord, 1 bullock, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without blemish. Their meat offering and drink offerings for the bullock, for the ram, and for the lamb shall be according to their number after the manner. And 1 goat for a sin offering, besides the continual burnt offering, and its meat offering, and its drink offering. These things ye shall do unto the Lord in your set feast." So what you're seeing now is in Leviticus chapter 23, verses 1 through 36, it tells you that there are specific meat offerings and drink offerings that are attributed to each holy day, and they're not all the same. But Leviticus 23 does not specify what those meat and drink offerings are on those holy days. Numbers chapter 28 and 29 gives you the specifics. How many of this is supposed to be offered? How much of that is supposed to be offered? What your drink offering should be? What your meat offering should be? It gives you the specifics for each holy day. That's why Paul is including all this stuff in verse 16. You had sacrifices on all the holy days. You had sacrifices on the new moon. You had sacrifices on the Sabbath. And that included meat and drink offerings. But Christ came and died to cover that because eventually the temple will be gone and we couldn't do this. This is not teaching you that you don't have to keep the holy days. It's teaching you Christ covers the things through his sacrifice that we are not able to do. But we should still rehearse the righteous acts. This is not teaching you the holy days are abolished. But the offerings that are made on the holy days, Christ has that part covered. It doesn't mean you still don't observe your days. But the offerings that were expected to be offered by the priests, Christ covered that. That's what this is teaching. Let's go to the next slide. The next part of Colossians 2:16 is the new moon. What about that? Let's look at Numbers chapter 28, verses 11 through 15. "And in the beginnings of your months," what's that? That's the new moon. What did you have to do? "Ye shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord, 2 young bullocks, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot, and 3/10 deal of flour for a what? Meat offering." Now everything should be coming together for you guys. When you look at Colossians 2:16 on the left-hand side of your screen, notice it covers the holy days, it covers the new moon, and it covers the Sabbath. Why? Because there were certain specific offerings that had to be made on those days, which were meat offerings and drink offerings were part of that. And you had to have a priesthood to do it. Verse 12 again. "And 3/10 deal of flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, for 1 bullock, and 2/10 deal of flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil for 1 ram, and a 7/10 deal of flour mingled with oil for a meat offering unto 1 lamb, for a burnt offering of a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord, and their drink offering shall be of a hin, half an hin of wine unto a bullock, and the third part of a hin unto a ram, and the fourth part of a hin unto a lamb. This is the burnt offering of every month throughout the months of the year. So every new moon, we had to do all of this. You had to make these burnt offerings and sacrifices and meat offerings and drink offerings according to the number of your bullocks and your rams, etc., etc. We had to do all of this. What happens when you don't have a temple no more, priesthood to do it? Christ has to cover you. His sacrifice has to cover you for all these offerings that we couldn't make anymore. That's what Paul is teaching. Why? Because you had the Israelites that were still in Jerusalem that were trying to force the Israelites in the diaspora that they still had to make these sacrifices. But Paul understood in the spirit that the Most High was eventually going to have the temple destroyed by the Romans, and there would be nobody to offer these things for us, but Christ's offering would cover everything. That's what this is teaching us. So if we're not making the meat offerings and the drink offerings and the burnt offerings, that's okay. And the sin offerings, that's okay, because Christ is able to cover us from that. That's what Paul is teaching the church at Colossae. He's not teaching them that you don't have to observe holy days no more. That's not there. That's not what's happening, right? Let's move on to the next one. And the last part of Colossians 2:16, it says, and the Sabbath days. What about that? This is Numbers 28, 9 through 10. And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deal of flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, beside the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. So now everything should be, if you're following along, everything should be begin to tie together. You're noticing that there were specific meat offerings, drink offerings, burnt offerings, sin offerings that were offered on all the holy days. The new moon had its own prescribed meat, drink, burnt offerings, sin offerings on it, and so did the Sabbaths. This is all talking about sacrifices, for lack of a better word. All of it. All of it. But the time was coming where there would not be a priesthood or a temple to do this stuff. So who makes reconciliation for Israel now that there's no temple to make the sin offering for anymore? Who makes reconciliation for us now? It's Christ, Yahweh Shai. That is what Paul is teaching the church at Colossae, not to not observe the holy day, but he's explaining to them that all these sacrifices and all these things that people are trying to convince you that you still have to do, Christ covered that. And it's forward thinking, because at the time he's writing the letter to the Colossians, right, the temple is still standing. But within the next 10 to 15 years, the temple will be destroyed. This is Colossians chapter 2, verses 16 and 17 again. Let no man therefore judge you in meat offerings, or in drink offerings, or in respect of a holy day, which are the set apart holy convocations that we had that had meat and drink offerings and everything else, or of the new moon, which had its own meat and drink offerings and sacrifices and burnt offerings of its own, or the Sabbath days, which had its own meat offerings, drink offerings, burnt offerings, sin offerings, etc. Verse 17, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ, because Christ offered himself on the cross, and his offering was able to cover all these things. That's all that this is saying. There's nothing here telling you that holy days are abolished. It's making more emphasis on the offerings that we made, the sacrifices that we would make. That's what the emphasis is on in verse 16. And how Christ's sacrifice covers all those other sacrifices. That's what's going on. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 10, verses 3 through 5. It says, but in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again made of sin every year. Every day of atonement, there had to be a sin offering that was offered, right? And then there was no conscience in it, because we would go back and do the same thing all over again, right? Verse 4, for it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away sins. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared for me. Because Christ's sacrifice would trump the sacrifices of the bulls and the goats and the bullocks and the meat offerings and the drink offerings and everything else that we would do. Christ's sacrifice would trump those things. Christ gave a greater sacrifice than those things. And guess what? Christ's sacrifice covers all of our sins. The bulls and the goats do not. They don't. Let's look at Ezekiel chapter 45, verse 17. Ezekiel 45, verse 17. It says, "And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feast." This is the same thing that we just read in Leviticus 23. It's the same thing we read in Numbers 28 and 29. It's the same thing. The Bible is repeating itself. Read that again. "And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feast and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths and in all the solemnities of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering, the meat offering, and the burnt offering, and the peace offerings," here it comes, "to make reconciliation for the house of Israel." To make reconciliation for the house of Israel. What was the significance of that meat offering? To make reconciliation for the house of Israel. What was the purpose of the drink offering? To make reconciliation for the house of Israel. What is the purpose of the sin offering and the burnt offering? To make reconciliation for the house of Israel. But when you don't have the priest anymore, how is reconciliation now made? It's made through Yahushua, Christ. That's what Colossians 2:16 and 17 is teaching us. It has nothing to do with the holy days being abolished whatsoever, right? So I'm going to stop right there. I want to do a time check real quick. I'm going to stop right there for a second, right? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second. All right. And what I want to do, I want to just check the chat, right? I want to check the chat. And if what I was saying made sense, then I want you guys to put one in the chat. I want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that there's no confusion. If you guys understood what I just went through, I want you guys to put one in the chat. Just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. All praises to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's clear. Okay. Because this stuff comes up a lot, and it won't be the last time that I'm gonna have to go over that. Unfortunately, I'm probably gonna have to go over that another 100 times, and that's fine. That's fine. You know, I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High for somebody showing me that, because that was a stumbling block for me early into the truth. Right, early in the truth, I didn't really know how to reconcile Paul's writings either. You know, so I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High for opening my eyes. And I'm glad that it made sense to you, brothers and sisters. And it won't be the last time that we go over that, okay? Levi tribe, I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. You said, is it possible that Colossians is also talking about the time of these events? I need you probably to be a little bit more specific with your question, or maybe I'm just not understanding it. Right. Okay. Okay. I'll come back to you and see if you clarify that in a little while. I want to kind of switch gears now. That's a whole PowerPoint where I actually go through a whole bunch of other scriptures the Christians use, but I'm going to leave that there for now because the other stuff didn't come up. I'll attack it when it comes up. For the time being, I think that was enough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit, if you brothers and sisters don't mind. Let me go ahead and open up a new window. I want to show you guys something. Now, I don't know how this is going to work. Meaning, when I say I don't know how it's going to work, meaning that this is not a PowerPoint, it's a video. And I just want to give a little commentary on this video, if you guys don't mind. I want to give a little commentary on this video. And the video is timely because it's kind of is dealing with what we're dealing with right now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen because I want to give commentary on it. So again, guys, if there's anything, if the audio is not good or whatever, just let me know. You guys can give me a quick text message and let me know. Let me do it this way. Let me how about if I do it that way? Yeah, let's do it that way. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see the screen. All right. So the video I'm going to play for you guys is timely because everybody knows what's been going on over the last now about 2 months or so. Right. It's been a major uproar. You know, the things that Kanye West had said caused a major uproar. And then, of course, we all know and lived through the drama that went on and continues to go on with Kyrie Irving. Now, I know that some brothers and sisters, you might have a little bit of fatigue on the subject. I get it, right? But we have to continue to talk about the subject to a degree because there's always something new that comes out that we have to kind of focus on, right? So I saw this video circulating on Instagram and Facebook, but I said I was going to address it here really quickly only because I figured that maybe some of you brothers and sisters have never saw this video before. So I said I would play it for you guys right here. So what I'm going to do is it's a short video. It's only 2 minutes and 47 seconds. So I'm just going to play the video and give a little commentary on the video as I play it. And then afterwards, I'll just play it straight through because I'm going to probably disrupt the flow a little bit. And I know you guys are going to want to hear it. Like, man, just shut up and play the video. So I'm going to talk first. I'm letting you know now. I'm going to talk first. And then afterwards, I'll go back and I'll play the video straight through. Okay. So the person in this video is a guy by the name of Mark Cuban, right? I could say a lot about this guy, but that's not neither here nor there. Now, I might be the only person that did not know that Mark Cuban wears the little small beanies on top of his head. I didn't know he was one of them. I didn't know because of his last name. Now, I want to give you guys a quick little bit of history just to latch on to really quickly, right? You're going to find that a lot of people that come from that community, usually you can kind of tell by last names, but not always. Not always. You can't always tell that somebody comes from that community simply based on the last name. Why is that? That goes back to the time of the Inquisition, right? During the time of the Inquisition, right? People were being put to death for a lot of reasons based on what they believed, right? So you have a term, you guys can look this term up yourself, right? That's called a crypto Jew. It's called a crypto Jew, right? And what a crypto, you know what? I'll bring it back. Let me stop sharing for 1 second. Because if I'm going to say something to you guys, the least I should do is show it to you, right? So you have a term called a crypto Jew, right? So let's see, what's the best definition? I'll just give you this one because it's correct. It's correct. So I'll give you this one and then I will, so let me go ahead and share my screen again. All right. And boom, share the whole screen, right? So there's something called a crypto Jew or crypto Judaism, right? What is that? That is the secret adherence to Judaism while publicly professing to be of another faith. Practitioners are referred to as crypto Jews. People who in secret at home practice Judaism or Torah, but in the public, they say that they're Christian. Some of them say they're Muslim, whatever the situation might be. That's called a crypto Jew, right? So now I can stop sharing again and bring back up. Let me go back and get that video again for you guys really quickly. All right, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so now I'm going to share the screen again. Let me do this first, this way. Share the screen again. And okay. So as I was saying, this guy, Mark Cuban, he's what you would call most likely a crypto Jew or his family, right? Because during the time of the Inquisition, that's what you had. You had a lot of people, our people, as well as the Edomites that were practicing our customs too. A lot of them became what was known as crypto Jews, meaning behind the scenes, they would still practice the customs. But in public, for fear of the Inquisition, right, they would profess to be Christian. That's what they did. Some of them even went as far as changing their names to names that sounded a lot more, quote unquote, Catholic, etc. They were doing that, right? You even have, and I really don't want to get off topic, you even have in the early 1900s, right, a lot of crypto Jews that converted to Catholicism and Christianity so that they can sit and head and chair certain director positions at universities. There's a whole history on that. I won't get too deep into that, but there's a whole history on that. Okay. They're really so-called Jews, but they would change their names so they could sit at Christian universities and different universities and sit there, and they could become the head of particular departments that have things to do with the Bible, like archaeological departments, et cetera, et cetera. They would be the heads of these departments. They'd be crypto Jews, Christians in public, but so-called Jews behind the scenes. So again, going back to what I was saying before, I didn't know Mark Cuban, based on his name, was one of those people, but he acknowledges himself as one of those people. And what threw me off was the last name, right? But now I understand there's a possibility the reason why his last name doesn't sound like one of them is because his family possibly could have been crypto Jews at one point or another a couple of hundred years ago. So that's why the name doesn't sound familiar. With that being said, as this video is relevant to what's going on, he says something very, very salient in this video that I kind of want to bring some light to, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fast forward just a little bit because he says it at the very beginning of the video, but I kind of want to lead up to it. So here we go.
It ain't real life. Real life street stars. Know what time it is.
Now, I want your thoughts as far as on the business of basketball. We look at a situation like Kyrie Irving.
No.
Mind you, basketball is a business where there's owners, bosses, employees. Then you see a situation where, you know, what's going on with Kyrie. For those who might not understand at home and think that, you know, things are supposed to go away. What is the business of basketball when it comes to ownership, bosses, employees? As far as rules and regulations.
It's like any other business, you know? If somebody says something that's racist or anti some religion, you're going to have to address it.
Now, we all know by now, ad nauseum, Kyrie said neither. He just shared a link. That's all he did. He said neither. Let's go.
You know, because he's not the only person that works there.
Right.
You know, and you've all had to deal with it in your life. I'm Jewish. I've had to deal with anti-Semitism. People didn't know I'm Jewish and talking shit right when I'm in the room. And it's just
And people didn't know he was Jewish a lot of times, like I said, because of his last name. His last name is Cuban. That doesn't sound very Jewish. So his name kind of hides his identity, right?
Yeah, you know, getting into fights when I was a kid, all that stuff. And, you know, it's not acceptable. But at the same time, like I had this conversation with somebody, if there was just some...
Now, I need you guys to listen. We're coming to the crux of it. I need you guys to listen because he says a lot in a very short time. Listen.
It's not acceptable, but at the same time, like I had this conversation with somebody, if there was just some dude on the street corner saying what Kyrie...
Where? Some dude where?
I had this conversation with somebody. If there was just some dude on the street corner saying what Kyrie said or Kanye said, you just assume they're crazy and keep on walking.
Who be on the street corners? Us. People call us crazy and they keep on walking. We're saying the same thing Kyrie and Kanye said. Judah's black. We're Jews. We're the Israelites. We're God's chosen people. God loves us. We say the same thing. What he's letting you know is They can tolerate us. They can tolerate us saying it. It's something else when them guys say it. Us over there, the media can say we're crazy. We're conspiracy theorists. Nobody takes us seriously. You guys do realize if you was to add up the subscribership, the subscribership of the largest Israelite groups on YouTube down to the smaller ones, you'd be lucky if you have 1 million subscribers. I'm talking about everybody. The pages are constantly getting canceled. You know, pages are getting flagged, taken down, so forth and so on. You will be lucky if you added up everybody's subscribership to have 1 million subscribers. So we're not as much of a threat to them, to the people, to the world, because our pages are constantly canceled, shadow banned, flagged, whatever word you want to use. We're not a threat to them because of that. We can just be called crazy. People can walk by us like we're not there. He's okay with that. Understand? Let's go back a little bit. Let's hear that again.
I had this conversation with somebody. If there was just some dude on the street corner saying what Kyrie said or Kanye said, you just assume they're crazy and keep on walking, right? Right. But when they're a celebrity, you can't do that because, you have a platform.
But when you are a celebrity, you can't do that. You guys see that? He's letting the cat out the bag. We don't care. This is why, and the reason why I'm going over this, brothers and sisters. This is why when people say, "Well, it doesn't matter," he didn't really come fully into the truth. He apologized, all this other stuff. I tell people that your lens is a little bit narrow. You need to broaden your lens just a little bit. The fact that they use their platform at all to bring any attention to this truth, no matter how short-lived it is important. It's important. And he's letting you know that. Why? Because Kyrie had 17 million, if I'm not mistaken. He has about 17 million Twitter followers. And if I'm not mistaken, like 5 or 6 million Instagram followers. Whereas if you added up all the Israelite channels on YouTube together, if you added up all of our Twitter followers together, if you added up all of our Instagram followers together, we'd be lucky if we had 1 million. Kyrie got 17 million by himself. And Kanye has double or triple that. Understand? They can't let that go. The crazy guys on the corner, we can talk that down. They're only going to reach but so many people. But this guy right here, one click of the button, right? Share, send, post, whatever platform you're on. One click of the button, and now you done told 17 million people that the Jews are black. Judah's black. That we're Jews too. Can't have that. I was in a room last week on Clubhouse where a female came on there and she said that her parents told her when she was young, this is like a sister, I think she's like in her 30s. She said when she was younger, her parents told her that the Jews are black, right? But she didn't really pay it no mind. It's coming from mommy and daddy, right? Whatever, right? She said verbatim, she was in the room because Kyrie said that. So mommy and daddy said it, okay, yeah, whatever. But a celebrity said it, and now all of a sudden the synapses in your brain are going off, and now it's starting to make sense to you. Well, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. And that's what these guys are afraid of. They don't want that. Because coming from mommy and daddy, you'll brush it off, ignore it. Coming from the guys on the corner in the Power Ranger suits like y'all say we wear, right? We're just crazy conspiracy theorists. People could ignore it. Oh, they're just mad. They're yelling on the corner because they don't have no jobs. They're yelling on the corner because they failed in life. They don't have jobs. They don't have women. They don't have anything. So they're just mad. See, they can say stuff like that. And to some of our people, that resonates with them. Yeah, I know that's why they do that, right? Can't say that about Kyrie, though. Kyrie didn't fail. He excelled in his profession. Can't say that about Kanye. By the time you add up all the different contracts that he lost, plus his actual liquid assets, the man was worth over $1 billion. Can't call him a failure. He's drove every car that there is to drive, lived in mansions, had all the top women that this society says are top women, which are not, but he had all of that. So you can't say that he's just mad. No, he just woke up for however long he woke up, for however long it lasts. And even if tomorrow both of them was to go back on saying this, so what? A lot of people have woken up to this truth because of things like this. You can't fight against God. You're gonna find yourself fighting against God by fighting against us. That's what the media doesn't understand. But Esau understands this. What I'm trying to show you guys with this video is that Esau understands this vividly. We can't let these celebrities think for themselves. We can't let them say that stuff for themselves. It doesn't matter. When you have a platform, and what they consider a platform is millions of people follow you, millions of people hang off your every word. When you have a platform, that's a problem. That's what he's letting you know. To hell with them guys that be on the corner, as he said.
Getting into fights when I was a kid, all that stuff. And, you know, it's not acceptable. But at the same time, like I had this conversation with somebody, if there was just some dude on the street corner saying what Kyrie said or Kanye said, you just assume they're crazy and keep on walking, right?
Right.
But when they're a celebrity, you can't do that because, you have a platform. And so people pay attention. You know,
so people pay attention. They pay attention to you because you're a celebrity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's why the media's doing what they're doing.
I can't speak to Kanye. I don't think Kyrie is got a bad heart, right? But I think he's definitely not educated about the impact it has, and see, they're not worried about. You got to pay attention to key stuff. He said Kyrie's not educated about the impact it had. He didn't say that what Kyrie shared was wrong. He didn't give specifics and say, hey, 10 minutes into the video, 50 minutes into the video, this is anti-Semitic, this was hateful, so forth. They don't do that. This is all about the impact and the reach. That's all it's about. He has the potential to wake up a lot of people with the click of a button. That's what they're worried about. He's definitely not educated about the impact it has, and that's just part of the process. I don't think he's one of those guys that would be in Charlottesville marching, chanting "Jews will not replace us." I don't think that's him. But I think, he's got a lot to learn. As a white guy, I've said things that I probably shouldn't have said, and I learned.
Like about Trayvon Martin. You sure did, and you didn't lose no money behind that.
Right? People correct me.
It was either Trayvon Martin or Mike Brown. I forget. It might have been Mike Brown. Y'all could put it in the chat, whichever one it is.
That's part of learning different cultures and learning to deal with different people, and we all make mistakes and we all learn from it. And I hope Kyrie does the same thing.
So there you guys have it, man. There you guys have it. I just wanted to play that video for you guys real quick, for you guys to understand the impact of what Kyrie did, and that's what they're worried about. That's what they're worried about. It's the impact of what he did and what he shared, and the amount of people that have access to that information that don't even know some of our YouTube channels even exist. All right. So I just wanted to say that is extremely important. Okay. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, real quick, it's history time, right? We'll go through a little bit of history, right? I'm going to give the people that are on Clubhouse, I'm going to give you guys, this is a PowerPoint. You guys might want to see this stuff. I'm going to give the people on Clubhouse, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes on Clubhouse to come on over, right? And so you guys can see the PowerPoint. The link is at the top of the room. I'm going to be back in 3 minutes. If you guys are not here, then that's on you. You heard? All right. I'll be right back.
I want to praise you, Yahweh. I want to thank you, Yahweh. I'm so grateful, Yahweh. I want to thank you, Yahweh.
I was told life is is a blessing, and life is a lesson. Life is a setback, and life is progression. Life is uneasy, at times life is comfortable. Life will lift you up, and at times life will humble you. Life is a gift, you better thank the Lord for it. Every chance you get, someone is less fortunate. Life goes in circles, life throws you curveballs. Life can be deceiving like preachers in the church halls. Life isn't promised. If I could be honest, the fact that I'm alive, that time has me astonished. Cause I came from the underground, being tossed around, being lost and found. Now they adore the sound of the priest, far from a nuance. Verses are proverbs, written's are the new songs. Another song for the blocks and the avenues. Everything is plain, I don't speak to them in parables.
I wanna praise you, Yahweh.
I wanna praise you.
I wanna thank you, Yahweh. I'm so grateful.
I'm so grateful.
Yahweh. I wanna thank you, Yahweh.
For the power I see the world through different eyes. Every Sunday got the preacher telling different lies, hearing things that I really couldn't visualize. Should've listened, Big said you'd be hypnotized. I was a victim too, I say respectfully. They all up in the soup, don't know the recipe. Talking about I'm not who I was bred to be. Count me out, man, who made you the referee? Trying to get stripes, trying to cloud chase. At 19, I made an about face. Thanks to Christ, it's also about grace. And they lied when they said it ain't about race. But that's another song, I ain't the first to tell you. Woke up on a deeper and a surface level. Learned the laws and the Lord's changed my attitude. And the song is to show you how a gratitude. I'm so grateful.
I wanna praise you, Yahweh. I wanna thank you, Yahweh. I'm so grateful,
We're so
Yahweh. I wanna thank you, Yahweh.
Now let it ride.
All right, history time, history time. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Now, you know, what I will say really quickly is this particular presentation I was saving for an event. Well, I'm working on it. It's a presentation in process or in progress. And this is a presentation that myself and the young, phenomenal teacher from Rum Gadal, Wescott, you know, we've been talking about doing something and giving something to Israel concerning the Bible translations and manuscripts and things of that nature. So I was in the process of putting this PowerPoint presentation together, you know, and a whole bunch of other ones that, you know, we were going to kind of touch on these subjects to help Israelites out a lot. Because what you're going to find is that a lot of opposition to the Bible is because people don't understand the process of how we got the Bible. The Most High did not stretch his long black arm out the sky and hand man a Bible. There was a whole process. You have, of course, you have the people that actually write and receive the word of God, right? You have the scribal process, right? You have the transmission process. You have the translation process, and sometimes transliteration as well, and preservation. So you have all these different bullet points of things that you have to have some cursory knowledge of to understand how the records or the scrolls made it from the time of the apostles to your hands today. There's a whole process behind it, and it's very good to know, right? But another thing that always seems to come up is the fight between those of us that say that we primarily use the KJV versus those that don't. So what I want to start off by saying and make very clear is that we do comparative text. We do comparative text. We are primarily KJV translation teachers, but we do comparative text, right? There are sometimes in some cases that I could show you, not today, where actually some of the other translations of the Bible give a better rendition of the verse when you look at the Hebrew. There are some places that is true. Those cases are usually in the Old Testament, though, right? Like, for instance, when it comes to, I'll give you guys an example, and I can always demonstrate it another time, right? When you look at that translation that you have, and I know it's 1 Samuel 16 and 1 Samuel 17, right? I'm just winging it now because I'm not going to look for it right now because that's not what this is about. I'm just giving you guys some information. When it speaks about David being ruddy, right? When you go to a place like Bible Hub and you put in the verses where it speaks about David being ruddy, and you look at all the different translations, some of the translations will actually literally use the term dark and handsome. That's what it will say. That's what it will say, which is a better translation to me than the word ruddy, which can be ambiguous. But overall, we prefer the KJV for a lot of reasons. Now, specifically, what we're going to do today is a series that I'm working on diligently, and it's going to take me a while, but I'm giving everybody a preview. I didn't do this PowerPoint. I didn't show this to anybody before, not even in the academy. I didn't, right? But the Spirit led me today to talk about it because this came up in a room I was in on Clubhouse as well. The primary argument that we have with other translations of the Bible is the New Testament. That's where the problem comes in for the most part, right? So the name of the series is called Getting to Know the Translators. If you don't think, listen carefully to what I'm telling you. If you don't think the opinions and prejudices of some of the translators of some of these newer editions of the Bible don't seep onto the pages, you're crazy. Because they do. And that's where the fight comes in between those of us that believe in the KJV and the rest of the translations that come after. Because the rest of the translations that come after, these guys that were involved in the translation process, they were bug outs. I'm going to show you guys that. I'm going to show it to you right now. How many of you brothers and sisters know who B.F. Wescott is and F.J.A. Hort are? Who are these two men and why is it important? Why are you talking to us about these guys? We don't care about these guys. Well, guess what? These guys have a major, major role in some of your modern translations of the Bible. You should familiarize yourself with who these guys are. Because when you get into arguments with people about why you prefer the KJV, this is a great talking point. When you actually know something about those other translations. In the Israelite community, it's too much parroting when it comes to that. Why do you believe in the KJV? Well, it's the most accurate translation to the Hebrew. Everybody says that. That's not the only reason. It's not the only reason why the KJV is the preferred translation. That's not the only reason. Those two devils on your screen, they're part of the reason why the KJV is also a better translation, especially in the New Testament. Those two devils right there are part of the reason why the KJV is superior. I'm going to show it to you. This is a saying that I always say. To know the quality of a translation, you must also know the qualifications of the people that were involved in the translation process. And you have to know their reputation too. Because all of that plays a role. Vocabulary time. What is syncretism? What is syncretism? This is important to know. Syncretism is the combination of different forms of beliefs or practices, right? Definition number 2. The fusion of two or more originally different inflectional forms. So syncretism, brothers and sisters, to make it really simple, deals with fusion. So when you have a certain worldview, and then you get a hold of some records of the Bible, you have a certain worldview, if you fuse the two together That's called syncretism. Whether you know it or not, some of those synagogues that Paul was teaching in the book of Acts, some of those synagogues, they were practicing syncretism too. These Israelites that were in the diaspora, that had synagogues and stuff, when Paul would go through go on his different missions, his different missionary journeys, and sometimes he would go into these synagogues and preach Yahushua and the gospel to them. Some of these synagogues were dealing with syncretism. They were melding Greek culture into Torah practice. They were doing that. It's a fact. When I go through the book of Acts and I get to those particular chapters, I'll show you that too. It's not a new thing. You have a fake god called Serapis. Serapis is a fusion god. It's a fusion of two different gods. Amun Ra. At one time, Amun was one god and Ra was the other, and they fused the two together. It's not a new thing. That's syncretism. Okay, let's keep going. So let's deal with this devil first. This guy is Brooke Foss Wescott. He was born January 12, 1825, near Birmingham in Warwickshire, England. He died July 27th, 1901. Auckland Castle, Durham. He was an Anglican bishop of Durham, England, and a biblical scholar of his time. He was considered a biblical scholar who collaborated with Fenton J.A. Hort on an influential critical edition of the Greek text of the New Testament. That's why I told you the fight really is with the New Testament. He collaborated with Fenton J.A. Hort on an influential edition of the Greek text of the New Testament. That text is called the critical text. We're going to get to it in a while. It'll make sense in a while. Just be patient. This is new information for a lot of people. Some of you guys have heard me talk about this before, so bear with the folks that this is new to them. I'm going slow for a reason, because I understand, especially when it comes to history, people can get lost real quick if you talk real fast. So understand, he collaborated with another guy, and they came up with an edition of the New Testament that's based on the Greek. It's called the critical text. That's important. We'll get to why later. Then you have Fenton J.A. Hort, born April 23rd, 1828, Dublin. Died November 30th, 1892, Cambridge. English New Testament scholar who produced, with Brooke Foss Wescott, the guy in the slide right before, a major critical text of the New Testament. Okay? These sources come from the Encyclopedia Britannica. You guys can actually go and read more about these guys, right? I just wanted to go there. Okay. Now, I'm giving you guys the cheat code, right? These are some helpful books. These are some helpful books, right? That book, The Final Authority, I've recommended it on this channel umpteen times. It's a great book, although it does have some bones, but it is a great resource that gives you so much information on the translation, transmission process, etc., all the different manuscripts that exist. And it actually even goes into comparing the manuscripts and why some manuscripts are better than others. That book is practically 400 to 500 pages long. I don't know who nowadays has time to sit down and read a book that's like that long. But what I've done, for the most part, I've failed a few times, is that when people get the book, I usually will give them the cliff notes of what pages to go to get what you need. Now, I can't do it for everybody. So at one day, maybe I'll just do a simple YouTube video going through this book and showing you guys what you need if you choose to go get it. It's very cheap on Amazon, but if enough people go looking to order it, it will not be cheap anymore. I paid, when I bought that book, I paid $7 for it. Probably right now it's somewhere in the 20s. And if 20 people was to go get it, the algorithm is going to boost it up to like $50 or whatever. But it is excellent in breaking a lot of that stuff down. Another book that I use as well is a book you guys can see right there called The Heresies of Wescott and Hort, right? Pretty good book as well. This is some of the places I go to and I do my research, which then leads me to primary sources. You read those books, but then you go to the bibliography and find out where they're getting their information from, because that's really the key. How do we know that these authors right here are speaking truth? You know that the authors are speaking truth because you go check the bibliography. See, you can't do that when you're reading a website. That's why they devalue reading books and want to give you all these websites and all this other stuff. No, the important stuff is in the bibliography. Just like if you're going to go to Wikipedia or you go to Britannica, you got to go to the bottom and see what sources they're using and go to the primary. That's important. So when you go to the primary, right, the aforementioned books led me to the primaries where we can actually learn about those two men, Wescott and Hort, in their own words. So you guys can see the book on the left is called The Life and Letters of Brooke Force Wescott, right? And it was written by his son, Arthur Wescott. So his son literally published his letters. So this is a primary. This is the man speaking in his own words. We don't have to lie on him. Okay. Then you had another book that was printed called The Life and Letters of Fenton John Anthony Hort that was published by his son. I got these primaries where they're speaking in their own words from reading books like these. So it's a lot of reading and a lot of researching and a lot of time, but it's important because I have to teach the people, right? Because these questions come up. And these stupid, not really the Christians in this particular case, these stupid conscious community Negroes think that they have something on you by bringing up certain things. So you have to be ready to answer, because these sort of things can be a stumbling block to somebody. All right. Before we get into those primary books, I want to watch a little bit of a video here. And the reason why I want to watch this video is because there are some important things that you brothers and sisters need to know. And the reason why you need to know it is because we just read something a few slides ago. We read that Wescott and Hort, hold on one second. We read that Wescott and Hort, they were involved in putting together something called the critical text, right? That's what we read. The critical Greek text. They were involved in putting that together. And I told you, brothers and sisters, we were going to explain what that is, because that is extremely important to know. This video is going to give you guys a brief explanation of what the critical texts are. Let's go.
And the main target is the crowning achievement of the Protestant Reformation, which is, of course, 1611 authorized King James Holy Bible. That is the fruit of the Reformation that the Jesuits want to destroy above all, because until they do that, they cannot be sure of getting indeed the entire world, and especially England, back under the thrall of the popery.
And real quick, Salakia, Salakia about that. Real quick, I want to just land back on what he just said. Remember, who was it that the gunpowder plot, where they tried to blow up Parliament and King James, who was responsible for that? It was the Jesuits. It was the Jesuits. Guy Fawkes was a Jesuit. So he's correct in what he's saying. Let's go.
Entire world, and especially England, back under the thrall of the popery.
18 years after the Jesuit meeting in Chieri, a German scholar named Constantine von Tischendorf would travel to Rome for what he described as a prolonged audience with the Pope. 1 year later, Tischendorf arrived at St. Catherine's Monastery at the base of what is called Mount Sinai in Egypt. Here, he discovered a manuscript that he claimed was more ancient than any of those used by the reformers. In time, and after further visits to the monastery, the manuscript he found would be named Codex Sinaiticus.
I got to explain that. So I'm going to go back a little bit. I have to explain that so you guys understand. I got to do it for the people that are new here that don't know what I'm talking about. The manuscripts, and it's in upcoming slides, but I'm not going to wait. The manuscripts that underline the New Testament in your King James Bible, which comes from the Reformation, is a set of manuscripts known as the Textus Receptus, or the received text. Those are the texts that are used in your King James Bible, right? So what you're watching in this video is that you had some people in the 1800s that came across some manuscripts in Egypt. And when they found these manuscripts in Egypt, they said these manuscripts are older than the Textus Receptus that the KJV used. That's what they said, which is BS, but I don't really want to focus on that right now. So I want everybody to be on the same page. They found a set of manuscripts in Egypt, and those manuscripts were named Codex Sinaiticus. The difference in a lot of your Bibles today is you have one group of Bibles, the New Testament is based on the Textus Receptus. And another group of your modern Bibles is based on Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus. So the argument is between which manuscripts are right and which ones are wrong. That's what the argument is happening right now. You got to notice. You have to notice stuff. It may not seem like you need, but you need to notice. You can't be religious when it comes to this truth, because somebody might ask you these things and you're going to be stuck. What makes the KJV better? Because it uses the Textus Receptus. Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus is trash. Don't worry. They're going to tell you in this video why it's trash. The video is going to tell you why Codex Sinaiticus and Vaticanus are trash. Listen.
Tischendorf arrived at St. Catherine's Monastery at the base of what is called Mount Sinai in Egypt. Here, he discovered a manuscript that he claimed was more ancient than any of those used by the reformers. In time, and after further visits to the monastery, the manuscript he found would be named Codex Sinaiticus. Oddly, it had more corrections or changes in it than any other manuscript in biblical history.
That's a problem. Did you hear that? I'm going to go back and play that again. Can't let none of that slide past you. You got to be paying attention with your ears pointed up. What did he just say? Look at the picture next to the video right here. What do you guys see? You see the whole page is practically blackened out, with just a couple of places where it's not blackened out, right? I just use this as like a meme. What they're telling you in the video is this manuscript that was found in Egypt that purportedly is of the New Testament. There was so many markings in it. There was stuff that was scratched out and somebody wrote over it. There was so much changes in it because somebody was messing with it. Does everybody understand? Somebody was messing with that thing over time. Remember, these manuscripts are not the ones used in the KJV. These are the manuscripts that's used in your NIV and these other translations. Hope everybody understands that. That's the argument. And these are the manuscripts that Wescott and Hort pushed. These corrupt manuscripts. That's what I'm trying to show you. Listen again.
Oddly, it had more corrections or changes in it than any other manuscript in biblical history.
Tischendorf claimed there were some 14,800 corrections.
How many? How many corrections? Say that again.
There were some 14,800 corrections done in the manuscript. Is that true?
It sounds about right. Sinaiticus is the most corrected manuscript of a Greek manuscript of the scriptures.
The Textus Receptus, the Greek manuscript used for your King James Bible, does not have this problem. Nobody was sitting there crossing stuff out and changing stuff. None of that stuff. That's important to know. Y'all picking up on what I'm showing y'all. That's super important to know. It's not just a mantra that we just say, hey, the KJV is better. No, there's reasons.
Years later, after Tischendorf published the manuscript, a copy would be presented to Pope Pius IX. The Pope would send a letter in which he expressed his highest appreciation of the publication.
Why is that? Why did the Pope highly appreciate the publication? Because the popes were against the KJV being translated. Remember, at the beginning of your Bible, everybody at the beginning of your KJV Bible, the introduction speaks about the Pope interfering with what they were doing. The Vatican never wanted that published. Never. The ones that came before King James, when you talk about Erasmus, they gave him the Catholic Church gave him a problem. When you talk about Casiodoro de Reina, that used the Textus Receptus, they gave him a problem. And they gave the translators in King James a problem too. They did not want that to come out. So now that they have these new manuscripts with all these markings and marked out and corrections, the Pope is like, great, that's the one we're going to get behind. Understand that.
About the same time, a second manuscript emerged from the Vatican Library, named Codex Vaticanus.
Did y'all catch that? All of a sudden, magically, after they found his first manuscript in Egypt, right? Now, all of a sudden, the Vatican finds its own manuscript down somewhere hidden away for hundreds of years. All of a sudden, they go into the Vatican Library, and wouldn't you know it, they have their own version of the New Testament too. Did y'all catch that? Listen again. Listen again. And all of this is to be in opposition to the KJV and specifically the Textus Receptus.
The publication. About the same time, a second manuscript emerged from the Vatican Library, named Codex Vaticanus, the Vatican Book, also said to be more ancient than the manuscripts used by the Reformers.
Vaticanus now has a very strange appearance. When you look at it as a manuscript text, but although you know that people tell you that it's a 4th century manuscript, it actually looks like a 15th century manuscript.
Did you hear that? Yeah, he's talking fast. He has a British accent, right? But he's talking fast. He said that we're told that Codex Vaticanus is a 4th century manuscript. But when you look at it, he says it looks like it comes from the 15th century, meaning that they made it up in the 15th century. They made it up during the time of the Renaissance, pretty much. That era. They made it up then, but they're telling you it's older. I didn't say that. He said that. Listen. These are the experts, not me. Listen.
Very strange appearance. When you look at it as a manuscript text, but although you know that people tell you that it's a 4th century manuscript, it actually looks like a 15th century manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
There's one very simple reason for that, is that almost the entire text has been overwritten by a 15th century scribe.
Did you hear that? I know I keep stopping it, sorry, but this is all pertinent. The reason why he said it looks like a 15th century text and not a 4th century text is because somebody overwrote almost everything. Somebody overwrote almost everything that's in it. Just adding their own words and just writing stuff in. And this is the source that some of your modern Bibles come from. These manuscripts that have things crossed out, things changed, people adding stuff in, blacking stuff out, all that. This is where your modern Bibles come from, not the KJV. But the rest of these Bibles, this is where it comes from. It's not just a mantra that we just say.
The entire text has been overwritten by a 15th century scribe.
Vaticanus and Sinaiticus are the two Greek manuscripts that would be embraced in the 19th century as older and more reliable than the texts used by the Reformers. Wescott and Hort combine them into what is now known as the critical Greek text.
Did y'all catch that? So you didn't catch it earlier because it was new. Now, did you catch it? They combined Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus. Both of these are erroneous, changed, marked out, tampered with, corrupt manuscripts, and made it all one and came up with what they call the critical Greek text. And that's where a lot of your newer Bibles come from. These devils did that.
Reformers. Wescott and Hort would combine them into what is now known as the critical Greek text that would be used for biblical translation throughout the 20th century.
So now, if you guys have watched some of my other videos, it's not in here yet. Like I told you guys, this is a PowerPoint in progress. So I'm giving you guys a preview of what's to come. And I've only scratched the surface. If you watch my other PowerPoints, you will know that there was something called a UBS Vatican agreement, right? After Wescott and Hort did what they did, there was a UBS, which is the United Bible Society, Vatican agreement. And in that agreement, they decided that they were going to use this new critical Greek text as the basis for all modern translations of the Bible. They were going to take the Textus Receptus and throw it in the trash and use these manuscripts instead that we just learned were corrupt as hell. So the reason why I'm going through this is because don't let nobody say to you, well, why are there so many translations of the Bible? And if it's one, I see this translation, the New International and the New World. You have to know the science behind it. The science behind it in simple form is that they've been trying to get the KJV out of here since it came out. And so by using all these other manuscripts and everything and coming up with all these different translations, they're confusing a lot of the people. Because a lot of the people will not do the research and study to understand this is a game that the Vatican is playing. But I need for my brothers and sisters to be able to express these things when these conversations come up, because you may know somebody that has these questions. And if you don't know today, you might meet somebody that has these questions tomorrow. So I just wanted to fill you brothers and sisters in on these things. Okay? All right. Enough said. I have 28 minutes to get through the rest of this, so I'm going to kind of accelerate slightly. All right. Hey, it's a sidebar. I was taught never trust a man with a woman's name. That's a sidebar. That was something I always learned coming up from the OGs. Never trust a nigga with a woman's name. A nigga whose name is Brooke, yeah, I don't trust you. Brooke is a female's name. I'm just saying. Anyway, real quick, let's go here. I'm going to have to come out of the PowerPoint for a second, right? And let's go here real quick. I'm going to highlight that, copy, and let's open up a this page real quick. I just want to show you guys something, right? So this is a website. You guys can utilize it at your own leisure, right? These are the Bibles that don't use the critical text, right? The Tyndale Bible. You guys might have heard of William Tyndale, right? The Tyndale Bible uses the Textus Receptus, not the critical text, right? Then you have the Coverdale Bible, the Matthews Bible, the Great Bible, the Geneva Bible, the Bishop's Bible, and ultimately the KJV. And by the way, the KJV, if you do studies, if you go to Zondervan's Bible Dictionary, right? You guys, and most people have Zondervan's Bible Dictionary. If you read the entry on the KJV, it'll tell you that when they did the translation, they kept a lot of Tyndale's work. A lot of what Tyndale did was excellent work, excellent translation, and the KJV translators pretty much kept a lot of his work. What he did was correct. So these Bibles all use the Textus Receptus. And by the way, William Tyndale, if I'm not mistaken, was burned at the stake. All right? So these are the Bibles that use the Textus Receptus. You have to get used to these terms. The Textus Receptus is a different form of Greek manuscripts from the critical text. It's different. The Pope and the Catholic Church have been trying to get the Textus Receptus out of here for centuries. Okay? All right. Now let's come back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to pick it up where we left off. Okay. Let's go to the next slide, right? So again, this is just a little bit of an illustration, right? Like right here, you have the Textus Receptus. You have the Geneva Bible that uses the Textus Receptus, also called the Byzantine text. The KJV uses it. Whereas these manuscripts that were found in Egypt, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus that was found in the Vatican, these Bibles, all your Catholic Bibles, like the Douay Rheims Bible translation, that comes from these manuscripts right here that we all learn today are corrupt for a lot of reasons that we saw in the video. The New American Standard Bible comes from these manuscripts. Your New International Version comes from these manuscripts. And the Christians' favorite, the English Standard Version, comes from these corrupt manuscripts too. And the Christians love the ESV, especially those of us on Clubhouse. We know. They come to the stage, we got to tell them, no, you got to read up the KJV, man. Especially your New Testament. You got to read up the KJV. Because them manuscripts that were used for your English New Testament in the ESV is trash. This is something else I've shown a lot of times. I'm just going to do it right here real quick. It's kind of an aside note, right? This is a translation continuum. It gives you the word for word translations are the ones that are over here. And I guess this is like a purplish blue, right? The word for word translations over here, meaning the translators literally translated word for word from the Hebrew to English, from the Greek to English, right? These other Bibles over here, right? Your NIV, your NLT, your New Living Translation, right? Your Good News Translation, and all these different translations over here. These are thought for thought, meaning that they did not translate word for word. When you do thought for thought translations, that means that you could put your own opinion in there. Then further along, you have some Bibles that just will paraphrase. So what I'm showing you guys, and I hope it's not too confusing for you, I'm showing you there's a lot to consider when you're choosing a translation. You want to know who was involved in the translation, right? What manuscripts did they use, right? That's what we learned. And also, what translation method did they employ? Did they go word for word like they were supposed to? Or thought for thought like they were not supposed to? And what you're going to find out is a lot of your modern Bible, in addition to using corrupt manuscripts, even when they got a hold of those corrupt manuscripts, when they translated them, they didn't do it word for word. Now you have a more salient and stronger argument for why we prefer the KJV. Let's keep going. Family photo time, right? Everybody knows who Charles Darwin is. Charles Darwin is the father of evolution, right? As he's considered to be like the father of evolution. And of course, you have black people that call themselves the Amun-Ra squad that love them some damn Darwin, boy. I never thought I would live to see the day. But yeah, Negroes love Charles Darwin. It's crazy. Well, on a personal note, if it's not bad enough that Wescott and Hort used corrupt manuscripts, if it's not bad enough that they didn't even translate those manuscripts word for word, we have to include one other thing from its primary source out of their own mouths. Hort believed in Darwin. Yeah, sure did. Listen, let's start from, let's see what, yeah. But the book which has most engaged me is Darwin. Not the Bible, family. Not the Bible. The book that most engaged this guy that was involved in the translation process of these new modern Bibles, his favorite guy was Darwin. You think that's not important? That's extremely important. Whatever may be thought of it, there's a book that one is proud to be contemporary with. He was proud to be a contemporary of Darwin. I must work out and examine the argument more in detail, but at present time, my feeling is strong that the theory, Darwin's theory of evolution, that the theory is what does that say? Unanswerable. Wait a minute. So the person that's involved in translating your Bible, which does not teach you evolution, is also a person that believes that evolution is unanswerable. I'll let that sink in for a second. This brings us back to what we were talking about earlier about syncretism. How a person's worldview can later on affect something else if they get involved in something else. And in this particular case, this guy was involved in the translation of the Bible. So yes, Hort believed in evolution. But there's nothing wrong with the translations that come from his critical text, right? This is the same thing. I'm gonna skip this right now because time is escaping from me. Okay. Let's deal with Mr. Wescott for a second. Pay attention now. Wescott was an unbeliever. He's an unbeliever. But he helped translate modern Bibles. How does that work? This is on page 52 of the Life and Letters of Brooke Force Wescott. We don't have to make it up. We just got to read. August 11th, James, I do not recollect noticing the second verse ever before in the way I have. How sincerely do I wish that I could rejoice in temptation. I never read an account of a miracle, but I seem instinctively to feel its improbability. That's interesting. You got to stop it. We have to absorb that for a second. So he doesn't believe in miracles, right? According to the Bible, he doesn't believe in miracles. But you were involved in the translation and the correlation of a New Testament that speaks about miracles all throughout the Gospels in the book of Acts. But you don't believe in it. But you're supposed to be our authoritative source to come to you for the translation. Does that make sense to y'all? Is it clicking now why I said that you have to know the translators too? It should be clicking. You have to know the translators too. It's very important. Let's go to the next one. It says, let's see, where do I want to start? It says, this is on page 69, right? It says, no one now, I suppose, holds that the first 3 chapters of Genesis, for example, give a literal history. I could never understand anyone reading them with open eyes could think that they did, yet they disclose it unto us a gospel. So Wescott did not believe in the book of Genesis. Now, what I will say to you is there is allegory in the first 3 chapters of Genesis. There is hyperbole in the first 3 chapters of Genesis, but some of that stuff is literal. When the Most High causes the earth to bring forth the grass and the trees and everything, that's literal. When the Most High tells the animals to be fruitful and multiply, that's literal, right? When the Most High tells Adam to know his wife, that's literal. And I can go on and on and on. So there's definitely literal things that are happening in the book of Genesis. Some of it is indeed allegory. Some of it is indeed hyperbole, but there's also literalism in Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3 as well. But you have to understand how to separate them all. He didn't believe in any of it. So again, the question is, if you don't believe in none of it, how are you the source that we should come to for a translation? That doesn't make any sense. Furthermore, Wescott was an unbeliever and he didn't have faith. He was faithless. Let's come down here and let's read. It says, I must find out all myself and then I am satisfied. But that simple faith and obedience, which so many enjoy, I fear will never be mine. So we read all about faith and obedience all throughout the New Testament. In the Gospels especially, there's a heavy emphasis on faith and obedience all throughout the New Testament. There is a whole chapter dedicated to faith in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11. And the man that gives you a New Testament manuscript that we should believe and use and believe is accurate tells us he don't even have faith or obedience. Does that make sense to y'all? Again, do you see why it's important to know these guys? That don't make no sense. Let's move on. Another contemporary of Wescott was a woman by the name of Madame Blavatsky. Y'all heard of her before? Some of y'all may have heard of Madame Blavatsky before, and some of you guys may not. But she was heavily into the occult. Heavily into the occult. Guess what? Guess what? So was Wescott. So he didn't have no faith. He didn't have no obedience. He doesn't believe in Genesis. But you know what he does believe in? Ghosts. Listen, this is on page 117 of his book. And this is what it says, right? It says, he devoted himself with ardor during his last years at Cambridge to 2 new societies. One of these was the Ghostly Guild. Hey, family, the guy that gives you the critical text to underline the New Testament of these modern Bibles, that guy was a member of something called the Ghostly Guild. Let that marinate. And other choral societies. The Ghostly Guild, which numbered amongst its members A. Barry, E.W. Benson, H. Bradshaw, the Honorable A. Gordon, here it is, J. A. Hort, right? H. Lord, C.B. Scott, was established for the investigation of all supernatural appearances and effect. Wescott took a leading part in their proceedings. Wescott took a leading part in their proceedings. So he was a leader in the Ghostly Guild, the occult. And he gave you the New Testament for your new Bibles too. How does that work? Oh, there's more. There's more. There's more. On page 176, he says, Plato and Aristotle have wrought that in me which I pray may never be done away with. So he was a lover of Plato and Aristotle on top of everything else. On top of everything else. These are the guys that give you your critical text for your New Testament for all these modern Bibles. Not the KJV, though. Not the KJV. I need for you to understand that. Like I said, now you have more meat, more heft to your argument when we say why we don't really deal with them other translations. We will do comparative text. We will do that. I have no issue with that. I do that myself. But we are KJV primarily for these very reasons. Because we go and we research it like, wait a minute, these guys that's giving us the stuff, these guys were devils. That's where the story ends. That's where I'm at in this PowerPoint. I still have a long way to go, but I wanted to share that with you, brothers and sisters. So, again, let me just, hopefully I was, don't tell me I wasn't sharing. Were you guys able to see that? Okay. Hopefully you guys were able to see that. All right. If you guys were able to see that and it made sense, put one in the chat, because I just confused myself. Like, wait a minute. Let me find out I was talking to myself the whole time. That would have been bad. But then again, somebody would have texted me. Y'all wouldn't have did me that dirty. So let me know. If you guys were able to see it and it made sense, put one in the chat. Let me know. All right. All right. Well, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High for, again, another Sabbath. I appreciate you, brothers and sisters, coming through. I hope you brothers and sisters were edified. Again, I appreciate everybody that reached out to me. The last 2 weeks, I was kind of caught up and I was a little bit under the weather as well, which is why I wasn't able to do the class the last 2 weeks. But, I'm back at it. So we'll continue on. Maybe I'll pick up where I left off in that Lois done away with starter pack. Maybe I'll pick up there next week and continue, as well as go through something else in history as well. I do appreciate all the love and support that all you brothers give. I also appreciate, by the way, just in general, I appreciate everybody that comes to the website and, gives us a donation. We do appreciate it. It definitely does help. Be sure, brothers and sisters on Clubhouse, make sure that you guys click over in about 6 or 7 minutes to the God First Gang room and join Corey and Mal's class, where those brothers are doing an excellent job. And so the classes have been moved, everybody, to 10 o'clock. I know I was doing them at 10:30. So tell a friend to tell a friend. I moved them to 10 o'clock to give myself a little more time to teach, because sometimes I get to rambling, and the next thing I know, time gets away from me. So with 2 hours, I should be able to get through my lesson. So I appreciate y'all. I look forward to seeing some of y'all in New York next week as well. It's going to be interesting, all right? I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. It's your brother, Priest Daniela, representing Lions of Israel, Maccabees TV. And if you've been listening to the video and you have not hit the like button, you need to repent and believe the gospel. That's wicked. And with that, I say shalom.
Reflecting the way of life under the Florida sky. Even the lobbies funnel in the great outdoors.
Chosen.
I was set apart for God's use. Chosen. I was set apart for God's use. Formed in His image.
Chosen. They say the chain of Shaitan is not that strong. They say his time is running out, he ain't got that long. They say murder, murder, kill, this is not that song. Said I won't amount to nothing, they got that wrong. Cause I was set apart and I was shown the light. And if I get the kingdom, I'll be clothed in white. 1/3 will be delivered and the rest were blinded. Their fate is set in stone, what you ain't read the fine print? Christ is gonna give a crown to us. In the end we'll have the nations bowing down to us, with their faces to the ground to us. It's the truth, as crazy as it sounds to us. Jacob forever rules, and we're his precious jewels. Showed us love and patience, put us above the nations. And that's the gospel, thank God for choosing me. Bad news for you, it's really good news for me.
I was set apart for God's use. Chosen. I was set apart for God's use. Formed in His image.
Let me tell you why. We have a different kind of shine, a different kind of mind. The rhythm's not the same, we're on a different type of time. With a different kind of pace, a different kind of race. The season's not the same, we have a different kind of taste. A different kind of salt, we are so not them. Got my sword and my shield, man, I'm so locked in. And when I came to serve Yahweh, I put my whole heart in. So I can't sit calm, I'm no Martin. And that's a reach, y'all, chosen to teach y'all. Every Sabbath you can find us in the streets, y'all. Dear Ya Allah, my nickname is Priest, y'all. In the gym, they say that I'm a beast, y'all. Set apart, the nations all hating me. Set a trap, they lying in wait for me. Chris Paul, they don't want to play with me. But if you love me, I'm asking that you pray with me. Cause
I was set apart for God's use.
Chosen.
I was set apart for God's use. Formed in His image.
Chosen. And thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God have chosen thee to be a special people, chosen above all people that's on the face of the earth. That's Deuteronomy 7:6. That's you, black and Latin man. Chosen. That's you, black and Latin woman. Yeah. But we've been chosen. Chosen.